Hey there, movie fans. Welcome to a brand new episode of FYC from now until March 12th, 2023, the 95th Annual Academy Awards. We're going to be coming in hot with our predictions, up or down, the best award season show you will find anywhere, and you can find it right here on Perri Nemiroff's YouTube channel. So before you do anything at all, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and you will get this video before anybody, and you can share it with all your friends, because believe me, it is worth it. This one's going to be worth it, because on this episode of FYC, where I am joined as always by the amazing Perri Nemiroff and the mighty Jeff Snyder, we're going to be diving into a category that I thought was going to be a breeze to predict, but boy, was I wrong. Best Director is what we're going for in this episode of FYC. And Perri, overall, what is your take on the potential nominees and honorable mentions for Best Director?
There's a lot of good options here. Looking at my list, it stresses me out that I'm only going to be able to say one with the utmost certainty. I feel pretty good about at least three of my others, but it does feel like a little all over the place that this category, maybe more so than the ones we've discussed thus far, is going to be defined by how campaigns pan out over the next month and a half.
Absolutely correct. I agree with you completely. Jeff, what's your take overall?
Overall, it's like the wild, wild west. Like there are just slots up for grabs. The other, like Perri said, I think that there's only one lock this year. And there's just there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of international talent. There's a lot of past Oscar winners. There's a lot of blockbuster directors who I think merit consideration this year. And a bunch of female directors as well. So we'll see.
We will see. And like you said, it's the wild, wild west. And the sheriff is, I think, sitting right at number one for all of us. Perri, who do you got? I think this one's obvious.
Obvious. Steven Spielberg. It's a done deal. He will. I feel good about saying this with 100% certainty. He will be nominated for Best Director for The Fablemans.
Without question, he's my number one as well. Jeff?
I wouldn't bet my life, but I'd bet one of yours. Yes.
Oh, well, thanks. So, yeah, you have him as your number one as well?
Yes, that's how confident I am. I love you guys so much. Like,
thanks.
I think he's getting in here.
He's getting in for sure. Of course, he is a two-time Academy Award-winning director for Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan. He also won as a producer, Best Picture for Schindler's List, nominated for Best Director 6 other times. Can you guess the first time that Spielberg was nominated for Best Director?
I feel like Jeff and I are both virtually looking at each other, waiting for the other to answer.
Raiders?
Raiders was the second. All right, I'll say. You want me to say it?
Yeah.
Okay. Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
That's what
I thought it was Jaws, but it was not. That was nominated for Best Picture, but he was not nominated for Director. Yeah. All right, so Jeff, who do you got at number 2?
Tough call right now, but I got to go with the movie that I just think is probably one of Steven's bigger competitors, which is The Banshees of Inisherin. So I'm going to go with Martin McDonagh at number 2.
You're going with Martin McDonagh at number 2. All right, Perri, where does he sit on your list?
Is on my list, but he's currently my number 5.
Okay. All right.
I'm just getting that feeling like that might be one of those films that goes a little heavier in the acting categories. And we might be so focused on, let's say, Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson that maybe Martin McDonagh is going to be thought number 3. So that's just why he's not higher up in my list. But right now I'm feeling pretty good about him getting a nomination.
Or he could be seen as a writer, Perri, where they just they give him the right.
That too. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, I'm so on the fence about Martin McDonagh as a Best Director because he's never been nominated for Best Director that he's in my honorable mentions. But you both have him in your top 5. So potentially that will stay in the top 5 if we get through the rest of this list and there's no changes.
I got to hear the arguments. I got to hear what you guys have to say, but that's my 2. What's yours?
Okay, well, listen. So Jeff, your number 2 is McDonagh. Perri, that's your number 5. Perri, who's your number 2?
Jeff, wait for this. I can already sense this is gonna be a point you disagree on. My number 2 right now, and someone I feel really good about getting a nomination, is Sarah Polley for Women Talking.
Okay.
I think
Why,
she
Perri?
does. I think she does well, just in general for campaign and buzz. I do think that Women Talking is going to wind up getting the nominations in a couple of categories. They're going to campaign really hard. I know that's going to happen. And I saw the movie for a second time the other night, and I loved it the first time that I saw it, but I think one of the things that wowed me the most about it was that even though I was prepared for how I felt after the first viewing, it was like all of those emotions just washed over me all over again. So the fact that I could see it twice and it could still have that much of an impact, I think really makes it stand out for me. But when it comes to Sarah Polley's work in particular, it's not easy to make a film that is pretty much entirely conversation driven in a single location dynamic, but she does it visually. And then also, just because it's not a big flashy movie like some other movies that might be nominated in this category that we might discuss today, it is of the utmost importance to have the right actors director when you're dealing with an ensemble piece like this, and when you're dealing with material like this too, to not just coach your actors to giving the best performances, but to also provide a safe space for them to explore these topics in. And I really think I see all of that on screen. I think I feel it while watching the movie. And then based on some interviews that I've watched and read, I just see them talking about having achieved all of that. And I really think that's going to build to get her the nomination.
Okay, Jeff, is Women Talking on your top 5?
No.
It is not. Okay. I have Women Talking, or Sarah Polley rather, at my number 5. And I agree with all your points, Perri. I think it'll really show really well in the acting categories, and I think in the screenplay category, which is where Sarah Polley has her one other Oscar nomination for 2007's Away From Her, the best adapted screenplay. I'm putting it in my top 5, not because it's my 5th favorite movie of the year or she's my 5th favorite director of the year. I'm putting it in my top 5 because I feel like people are talking about the movie, that it's got a lot of heat and that it's going to be opening, like really, really, really soon. It's going to be platforming, and you talk about campaigning at the right time. I think all those things are going to hit. I think it's going to be really important to have a female showing in the best director category. And I feel like she's probably the best shot. I liked the film a lot. I don't think I liked it as much as most people, but I did see it again. I liked it better the second time. And I feel good about putting her in my top 5 based on a whole lot of factors. Jeff, do you have her in your honorable mentions?
Yes. I mean, okay, before we get into it, do either of you have another woman on your list?
I do, but not in my top 5.
Okay.
Yeah, not in my top 5.
So I'm glad you opened the door for me, Scott, so that I don't have to be the guy to bring it up. Okay. I do think there, whether there needs to be or should be or deserves to be a female presence in this lineup. Absolutely. The problem is that we're kind of just like, Sarah Polley has become like Greta Gerwig, where like she almost gets like some automatic nomination or something. This does not pass the eye test. The eye test to me screams Maria Schrader, okay, for She Said, who just made a far better film than Women Talking. And I'll tell you why. When you make a movie that comes down to a character pushing a button on a screen, and it's as suspenseful and as full of tension and emotion as that moment, you have succeeded.
For sure.
And she did just as fine a job with that ensemble as Sarah Polley did with the women in Women Talking. And frankly, I think Gina Prince Bythewood did a better job on The Woman King than Sarah Polley either. So it's just like the eye test. I get that Sarah Polley is absolutely, in terms of like a chart, she's probably higher up, but she shouldn't be.
Okay. Well, that is a really, really fair point. And I actually, when I was doing my list, when I was taking a first pass, I had The Woman King as my number 5, and I switched her out with Sarah Polley. Perri, do you have Maria Schrader on your honorable mentions or in your top 5?
I don't think that that's going to happen for that particular movie, but not because I don't think she's deserving. I'll agree with Jeff. That's enough. I mean, similar to what I just mentioned with making so much conversation dynamic in women talking. It's not easy to make a movie about investigative journalism feel as tense as she does, as Maria Schrader does, and I think she does a pretty exceptional job with that. So I would love to see her get the nomination, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I understand that. Maria Schrader doesn't have the profile of either of those two filmmakers, Sarah Polley or Gina Prince Bythewood. So that is her uphill battle to climb. But if that movie catches fire the way that, I think it should and deserves to, maybe it's a different story. But
we felt it during that AFI Fest screening. Like that was an electric audience that really responded to that film.
And that's Hollywood, right, though, Perri? So it's like, does that movie play outside of Hollywood? Which I think it has to if it's going to get in, not necessarily Best Picture field, but the Best Director field.
I think it's part of it. I think it's just going to wind, so I think it's a good sign that it played that way in Hollywood, where maybe more rather than less of the voters are based. But I think having maybe the 1-2 punch of Hollywood getting behind it like that and the story catching on when it's actually released is going to big time work in that movie's favor. And I think I don't mean to turn this into a She Said review, and I'm sorry to keep rambling, but the second time around, what I really appreciated about how She Said was structured was that it really it felt like it took the time to rehash exactly what had happened for maybe someone who hadn't been following along with everything in the news, so that it still felt interesting and compelling to someone who's been following this situation all along, but it could very quickly get someone who's outside of our bubble maybe up to speed really fast, and then we all land in the same place in the end. And that same place, that button push, is incredibly powerful.
So
they could both get in, right? They could both get in.
I would love
they could both get in. Sure, they could absolutely both get in. I mean, Jeff, you bring up a good point. I mean, does it need to play outside of Hollywood? I don't think it does. I mean, I certainly hope the movie does play outside of Hollywood because it's a really good movie. And I feel like just in terms of like all the suspense that you're talking about, the movie played out a lot like Spotlight, which won Best Picture for 2015. I feel like Spotlight's a better film, but I did really like She Said.
Did he win Best Director, Scott?
No, he did not. No, it was Inarritu for The Revenant. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Well,
we can move on to our number 3.
Let's kind of keep that hanging there. My number 2, in case you were wondering, my number 2 goes to 2 directors, the Daniels. Daniel Scheinert and Daniel Kwan for Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a movie that I love, I know you love, and I know everyone watching and listening has loved, and it has made more than $100 million worldwide. It's A24's biggest movie of all time. It is a total hoot. It's so much fun. It is so visionary. It is a director's film for sure. And I don't care if it's going to be too far out for the Academy. I don't buy that at all. I think because the Academy has more than doubled in its size in the last few years with a lot of younger members, I think Daniel Scheinert and Daniel Kwan get in for Everything Everywhere All at Once. You're shaking your head. Perri, what do you think?
They are my number 3. I think it's going to happen. I don't think this groundswell of support is something that's going to fizzle out. If anything, I think the momentum is going to continue to build. And at least from my perspective, when I watch a movie like that, I'm like, that is a true directing feat where I really do deep down to my core believe that if any other director was behind that movie, there is no way in a million years they would have achieved the same level of success with that story and that concept. So I think it is a true movie that is like so uniquely them, and that should be rewarded.
For sure. Jeff, are the Daniels on your top 5?
Right now I have them at number 6, actually.
God almighty.
On the outside looking in. Again, movie, they're up against some Titans, and I left a bunch of Titans off this year. I mean, there's just a lot of competition, and let's be frank here, no one knows their names. Their names are Daniels. Like, people are like, if you were to say Daniel Kwan, they're like, wait, who? So I wonder if, like, could I have put this movie at number 5 if it was just one person? Like if it was just one genius you could attribute this vision to. I almost think that being a twosome hurts in terms of getting
I
a
don't think
nomination.
so at all.
In
No
terms
way.
of getting a nomination,
Yeah.
I think it's tougher as a directing duo. I do.
Respectfully
think so?
disagree.
I don't think maybe it's just because like of the way my brain is wired, but I've never even stopped to think about it. It's like I almost find it like easier and catchier to say like the Daniels or the
Yeah.
Coen brothers. Like
I
that
agree.
immediately becomes such a specific like brand and identity to me that I can't separate it from a singular person with a name.
Here's the other theory, and again, I have them at 6. Like I was close to putting them on. The crew is very small here, right? It's not like a 500-person visual effects team like a lot of these movies have. It's like 6 people, right? And they're like newbies too, so they may not even be in the Academy voting yet this year. So I just feel like some of these movies that have 1,000-person crew that it takes 10 minutes for the credits to play, they benefit from those votes and stuff like that. And this is a very small team making a very small movie.
That description, though, also makes for a really great narrative of 2 guys with a wildly creative idea who made so much out of so little compared to other productions.
Listen, the Everything Everywhere has been going strong since its world premiere at the South by Southwest Film Festival. It is still riding a wave there. Unlike some other films, including the first movie that we talked about, where I feel like some of the buzz has kind of cooled off, Everything Everywhere is still going very, very strong, and it was very easy for me to put that at my number 2. So, okay, all right, 2 out of 3 votes.
I'll put it on.
All right, so Perri, you have it at number 3. Jeff, what's
Great.
your number 3?
My number 3, I think if there's like an art, I don't know if you consider like Banshees like a real art house movie. I guess it is. But if there's like one person who's made any like real challenging movie this year who I think gets recognized, it's Todd Field for Tar. I have Todd Field making the cut. I just think that it is a kind of cold movie, a little clinical, but it's such a directorial feat. I think it'll be hard for that branch to ignore this season.
I agree with that sentiment, but I don't know if it's in my top 5. Perri, is Todd Field in your top 5?
My number 4. My number 4. It's been really exciting now that movie is out and able to be seen by the public. So many people have told me they've seen it and they can't stop talking about it. Okay. And I feel like when you say you can't stop talking about a movie and you can keep talking about it all the way through to nomination time, it's probably a good sign.
What's interesting is that the 3 of us have picked a lot of movies where 2 of us agree on it.
Right.
Like Tar.
Get that third person on board.
I'm easily swayed on Todd Field and Tar. I mean, actually, again, when I was doing my list the first time, he was on my list, but then I kept going through other films, and it was a really hard list to come up with. But my number 3, all right, I'm just going to say,
no.
My number 3,
no.
all right, yes,
Don't say it,
here
man.
we go. Here we go. My number 3 is a movie that I love, I know you love, and I know that everybody loves. I know that critics love it, pundits love it, journalists love it. Everyone loves Top Gun Maverick. Joe Kosinski. Joe Kosinski. This is a movie with a capital M. It is an awesome film, and everyone loves Top Gun. I mean, I know people who've seen Top Gun over and over and over again because they love it so much. I saw it 5 times in theaters because I love it so much. And every time I see it, I love it, love it, love it. And I think Joseph Kosinski did a freaking bang-up job directing this movie, working with producer Jerry Bruckheimer and producer Tom Cruise and star Tom Cruise. I think that if there's any massive blockbuster that deserves to get Best Director, this is the movie, because again, this is a film that brought people back to the movies and they were duly rewarded with a movie that kicked ass. Joseph Kosinski is my number 3 choice. Do either of you have him on your list?
I really appreciate the enthusiasm, though, Mance.
I knew it was a big swing, Perri.
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't think you were going in that direction. I was waiting for something else.
Jeff.
Is he frozen?
Not that big a swing. Number 4 on my list.
Oh my God, you guys.
I love it.
I mean, listen. This is going to be a battle because we're talking about movies like Avatar with James Cameron, and he's the king of the world, as we all know. Okay. We're talking about Ryan Coogler, who overcame an obstacle that no other filmmaker had to deal with this year. And so those are the blockbuster guys. Plus, he has to take out all the auteurs who have like won Oscars in the past, Damien, Alejandro, etc. But I think that he can vault all of these guys because Top Gun is so good, and like he directed the hell out of it. Like
He did.
It's undeniable what this guy did. Again, it's the eye test. I just don't see how sequels to Avatar and Black Panther. I know that this is a sequel as well, Top Gun, but it just feels like a completely different visual language of film. Like, and it has changed aerial combat sequences, I think, forever. I loved it. I think he's gonna.
I mean, look, I just think that you're right. Even though it's a sequel, I don't really think of it as a sequel because it's been like 35 plus years, and where Black Panther, it's only been like 4 years, and I mean Avatar, sure, it's been 13, but you're like continuing the story, with better visual effects and everything. But I just like the way that movie just was the right movie at the right time, and they waited for 2.5 years to release the film. And I think the fact that they did wait and there was so much anticipation, and the payoff was that it was just such a freaking great movie, is going to carry it further than the fact that it actually is a great movie.
They have to thread the needle on that campaign, like that's going to be a real threading the needle situation, first of all, because he also doesn't have the same profile. I think he suffers from a similar problem, almost like the Daniels, where he isn't quite as well known as a lot of these filmmakers. And Paramount has Damien also, but it's like almost like if they push Top Gun for Best Picture and Damien for Best Director, I worry about that for him. Well, who knows?
Okay, so I have Spielberg at 1, the Daniels at 2, Kosinski at 3, and Sarah Polley at 5. Who are we missing on your list, Perri?
Nobody. I've hit everyone. My list is Steven Spielberg, Sarah Polley, the Daniels, Todd Field, and Martin McDonagh.
Okay, and Jeff, are we missing anyone on your top 5?
Yes, and it's the person is we can't judge right now. I mean, it is really a wild card, and that's Fuqua. Antoine Fuqua for Emancipation, who I think I checked out the Variety chart before this episode, and he's like number 2 on Clayton's chart.
Yeah, I saw it too.
I'm hard pressed to ignore that, because it does look. I mean, what if it's like this year's 12 Years a Slave or whatever? Like Steve McQueen, didn't he win for that?
Yeah, he won Best Picture, but not Best Director.
Right,
that was.
As soon as I said that, I was like.
That was Gravity, so that was Alfonso Cuarón one.
Right, 13. It was the classic split situation. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Wait. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this about Emancipation. So, does the Will Smith situation
rub
off on him in a good way?
Good question.
In a good way, where people will be like, "Well, I'm not voting for Will Smith, but I love the film and I love what Antoine Fuqua did, so I'm going to vote for the film and the director, but maybe not the actor."
It comes down to the campaign, right? I think it's about how he answers some of these Will Smith questions. It's going to be a minefield this season, and he's going to have to do a bulk of the press.
All right, so you have Emancipation, Antoine Fuqua, your number 4, right? 5. Okay, so that's your 5. So the only one that's missing is
Spielberg, McDonagh, Field, Kosinski, Fuqua.
Okay, so my number 4 is my number 4's got a whole lot of shaking going on because I'm going with Baz Luhrmann for Elvis.
No, never mind. Okay.
Elvis. I mean, again, this is a great movie, and Baz Luhrmann hasn't done a film in 9 years, and he is much more restrained, making a film that is stronger and definitely more accessible to people who may not usually like Baz Luhrmann's style. I think he was right on point with like playing to his strengths without going over the top. And Elvis is a movie about Elvis for people who don't even like Elvis or don't really care about Elvis. It's just a great movie. I like Elvis. Of course, I like these guys more, but I love Elvis. I think it's perfectly directed. It's just right for what it is. But none of you have it on your list, so there it goes.
Honorable mentions, but let me ask you: is there another awards movie that maybe you recently saw that you think Baz Luhrmann could have directed?
Another awards movie? Sure, it's called Babylon.
Exactly.
I
right?
kept
And
waiting
so
for you to say Chazelle, mans.
He's in
I
my
think
honorable
I think it's Baz and Chaz kind of like cancel each other out. That's how I'm referring to them, Baz and Chaz.
I think Chazelle might have canceled himself out by making a messy movie.
All right, well, let's talk about the elephant in the room where there was literally
An elephant.
in the room. Yes, an elephant. Does Damien Chazelle, Perri, I know you saw it. I saw it. Jeff, did you see it? Babylon?
No.
All right, Perri, I mean, do you think that the movie has a chance, that Damien has a chance for Best Director nomination?
No, and I don't want my emphatic no to come across like this was the worst movie ever. I hated it, because I didn't. I really liked parts, but then I thought other parts could have been far stronger, and that there's too much going on in the movie to well support enough the really good ideas and key players involved. And there's a lot of that going on. But I think because of how enthusiastic I've been about all of his past work, like, this is the problem. And it's not necessarily a fair problem to give to a director, because, over the course of someone's life, they make many films, the quality goes up, it goes down, it's all over the place. It's hard not to be so disappointed in Babylon because of the high praise I give to Whiplash, First Man, and of course, La La Land. I love those movies, and I just didn't see that kind of refinement in this movie, and it disappointed me. Again, I did not hate the movie by any means, but it's hard not to come across as super negative when you're that disappointed in a filmmaker that you've been used to delivering at a sky-high level.
Okay, this is what I will say. Your assessment about it is right on point. I think I've liked it more than you. But, when I saw Whiplash at Sundance in 2014, I walked out of that movie going, oh my God, that was amazing. Of course, when I saw La La Land, a Telluride, everybody knows my love for that movie is legendary. And First Man was a film that I also loved immediately, and was really disappointed that it didn't really take off enough during award season. So with Babylon, I was completely blown away, and like, I just was, it was a film that rocked my world in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I feel like it's not a movie that everyone is going to love, like especially La La Land and Whiplash. I think that's going to be the problem, is that people are going to love it. And I know people who do love it. And I certainly, at the screening I went to, I didn't go to the one you did, Perri. I went to the next day, and in the lobby, people were raving about it. But I saw some of the reactions on social media, and I just don't know if everyone is going. It's not as commercially accessible as like La La Land was. But it's a bold film. It's a completely audacious, decadent. It's Damien Chazelle working without a net, pulling out all the stops. And I think it's a film that I definitely need to see again to really like have my opinion about it coalesce in my consciousness. Because one viewing of that massive movie is not enough. And I do love it. And I think Damien, really just did a spectacular job. I thought the music by Justin Hurwitz was fantastic. The wardrobe, the costume design, all that. But it's not a movie that I can just watch once and go, oh my God, that was great. I got to see it again. I really have to see it again. And maybe that will move up to the part of my list where you thought I was going to put him, Perri. But right now, he's a very, very, very strong honorable mention. I just got to see it again, and I want to see how it plays and see what other people think, and sort of get the reaction to it before I can really settle on where he belongs.
Think about if many people in the Academy have the same response that you're having right now and feel required to see a 3-hour and 8 movie a second time in order to solidify whether or not they're going to vote for him. It's like, that's part of the reason why I think it's never going to happen. The reactions are like all over the place, super positive, super negative. But then there's a bunch of people who are in the middle and might think that they might need another rewatch. But with everything out there, I don't know if those rewatches that could be required to get him the nomination are ever going to happen.
That's extremely plausible. And, this is literally like right out of the gate, because I know Perri and you and I literally just saw the film. And I think it's like, we just got to let the dust settle on it to figure all that out. But having heard what we said about it, Jeff, and what you've heard and what you've read, what's your take on it?
from the outside, having sort of read between the lines and all the headlines and all the tweets the other day, it doesn't sound like he's going to be nominated. It sounds like he made a big, bold, kind of messy movie. And I just think it's going to be tough this year. Plus, I think that the director category leans away from those kinds of bigger movies and embraces smaller, more intimate movies. Like, wasn't like Pawlikowski nominated recently?
Who?
Right? Pawlikowski, right, for the foreign film. Like, I just feel like they're
am I saying the right one? Was that the Cold War?
Yes. Wasn't he nominated?
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
It's like I'm seeing I feel like the director's branch embraces those kinds of smaller, more intimate movies, which is why I'd give someone like Todd Field a leg up on Damien this season.
Can I make one more point on the Babylon situation? So just like in general, another thing that bums me out a little bit about what happens to a director who hits so big so many consecutive times early in his career, like Damien Chazelle, is that when a film like that doesn't go on to be an Oscar contender, it's like automatically deemed a not so great film and a disappointment, which like doesn't feel fair when ultimately the amount of films that get released and the amount that get nominations, and like those nominations don't necessarily determine for everybody whether a film is good or bad. It's just like, I don't know. It's like a great opportunity. It's like a double-edged sword. It comes with the great opportunity of being an Oscar nominee and having your work celebrated, but then it comes with that added pressure and those like super lofty expectations that you constantly have to live up to just because you began as an Academy favorite.
Look, I mean, that definitely is an auteur. He's got a vision. He's a bold filmmaker, and he pulled out all the stops with this, and that's admirable and deserves recognition. But you bring up good points, and this, like I keep saying on every episode of FYC, these predictions are going to change. Especially, I mean, I think of any category we've covered, I think this is the one where there's going to be a lot of moving parts and musical chairs on it. But right now, the movies that we agree on with at least 2 out of 3, or the directors rather, are Steven Spielberg, the Daniels, Joseph Kosinski, and Sarah Polley. So we need one more to get in there.
Wait, did you say Todd Field or Martin McDonagh?
Oh, McDonagh and Todd Field are also 2 out of 3.
So that's the thing. We have 6 people basically for 5 spots. So I need to eliminate someone. I'm going to take Fuqua off. Daniels is now my 5. But we're talking about Spielberg, McDonagh, Field, Kosinski, Daniels, and Polley. So who are we eliminating?
Of the bunch, I would eliminate Kosinski.
I would not eliminate Kosinski. Of the bunch, I would
eliminate Polley.
Yeah,
No.
I hate to say this.
No way.
Todd Field's got to get in there, and I think Todd Field gets in over Martin McDonagh.
Then I'd eliminate Daniels if we're staying with Sarah Polley.
No way. Daniels stay there. The Daniels stay. The Daniels got to stay. The Daniels got to stay. I mean,
choosing between Todd Field and Martin McDonagh?
No,
that doesn't feel right either.
If I'm going to feel, so what, you think Martin McDonagh over Todd Field?
I do. I think both are. That's my 2 and 3 right there behind Spielberg. So I think both of them are. It's Kosinski, Daniels, and Polley on the second half of my list.
So Perri does not. You don't think that Sarah Polley should be taken off the list?
No,
There's no way.
No.
There's no way. Not even. Okay, go ahead.
I am choosing to believe that there is absolutely no way we wind up with 5 director nominations and not a single one is a female director.
I agree with you.
I refuse to believe that's going to happen, especially with how many great female directors delivered big this year.
I'll buy into that logic. So I will buy into that logic, right? So then she's in. So what are we talking about? Kosinski versus Daniels. One of them's got to go, Scott. Unless either or one of.
I'm not taking out the Daniels. But I don't want to take out Kosinski either, because I think Kosinski just did a phenomenal. I mean, come on, it's Top Gun Maverick, man. It's a great goddamn movie. Jesus Christ.
Perri, what do you say?
I think I'm obviously going to be happy.
Kosinski.
Well, the one would be removing that I would remove is Kosinski. I think that Paramount is going to go especially hard with some of the other technical categories and with Best Picture. And even though I think he might be in the next tier, I think the focus being on those other categories, in particular Best Picture being the big one, I think that's going to reduce his chances of actually getting a nomination where he needs a more forceful push than some of these other names we've discussed.
All right, so Perri, if you were going to choose between Martin McDonagh for Banshees of Inisherin and Todd Field for Tar, either one of those films getting into the top 5, who of those two directors would you choose? Because that's the question I'm asking, because that will determine.
I really think it's a toss-up between the two of them, but I'd give a slight edge to Todd Field right now.
Okay, in that case, I'm also going to give a slight edge to Todd Field, and I am going to bite the bullet on this episode of FYC, which again, this list is going to change. There's no question this list is going to change. I really want to put Damien Chazelle in my top 5, and I would like to think that maybe the next time we cover Best Director, that'll happen. But for this episode only, this is how much of a team player I am. If I have to choose between the Daniels for Everything Everywhere All at Once or Joseph Kosinski for Top Gun Maverick making the cut for Best Director, for this case, in order to put Todd Field in, I'm going to bump for this episode. This is how generous I am. This is how generous, because I care. I'm going to bump, just for the time being, Joseph Kosinski, and I'm going to keep the Daniels. So our top 5 directors for this episode of FYC are Steven Spielberg for The Fablemans, Daniel Scheinert and Daniel Kwan for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Todd Field for Tar, Sarah Polley for Women Talking, and who am I missing?
Martin McDonagh.
Martin McDonagh for The Banshees of Inisherin. And there it is. There it is. That's our list. That hurt. That hurt taking out Joseph Kosinski. And it's like I'm getting like bombarded by all the sunlight now because it's like the sun is like setting so early. So okay, that's our list, right? All right. Well, that's just this episode of FYC. Make sure you comment below. Let us know what you think of our predictions for the 5 best directors. Let us know if you think that Joseph Kosinski will get nominated, because I think he will, but I'm being generous here. So let us know what you think of our nominations. Make sure you subscribe to Perri Nemiroff's YouTube channel. Make sure you share this episode of FYC across all your social media platforms so more people can discover the very, very, very best FYC show of them all, with the best trio weighing in on these predictions. And we're going to keep weighing in every week until March 12th, 2023. So that's it for this episode of FYC on Best Director. Until next time, FY, see you later.